Welcome back to the Guitar Reliquary. Today we're going to be checking out my Gibson Custom Shop Murphy Lab Ultra Light Aged 1959 Les Paul Standard in Southern Fade. Let me begin by saying Southern Fade is not my preferred color. I would have much rather had a green lemon or dirty lemon, but after playing this guitar and seeing the deal that I was able to get on it, I settled for this, and I'm actually quite happy with that. So let's talk about, in this video, how this is similar to other custom shop guitars, and then how it's quite different from the 1950s Les Paul standards that are out there. And whether those differences amount to the price difference is going to be up to you, the viewer, rather than up to me, because I've found, USA Les Pauls that I enjoy, I've found custom shop Les Pauls that I enjoy, and then I've found both that I didn't enjoy. So it's really, I think, subjective, and it's probably per instrument with these. So let's talk about the DNA of a Les Paul. To begin with, we have a one-piece mahogany back on all custom shop reissue Les Pauls, which is different than the 50s standard Les Pauls produced by Gibson USA right now, which most frequently have a two-piece back. The neck is, of course, one-piece mahogany that is shared across all Les Pauls USA and Gibson Custom, except for those that have maple necks. And so in this case, we have a mahogany neck. This has a 59 neck profile, obviously, since it's a 59, but what I find is this isn't as beefy as some of the other 59 necks that I've played, and it also is not as beefy as the USA 50s Les Paul. It's kind of a compromise between a 60s slim taper and a 50s standard, excuse me. Additionally, you will find that on the custom shop guitars, these necks are fitted to the body as set necks, which is common to Gibsons, but through a long tenon. So a long tenon means that the part of the neck that joins the body actually extends to about halfway through your neck pickup cavity. So if you were to take this out, you would see the tenon below it. Whereas on the 50 standards, they have a short tenon. And so the short tenon does not extend as far under the bridge pickup, the neck pickup, as the longer tenon. Some people claim this contributes to sustain. I don't know. I've played both, and I've had really good sustaining short tenon guitars and really good sustaining long tenon guitars, and then those that didn't sustain so well either. Another difference between Gibson USA models and Gibson custom models is that the necks, for the reissues, the necks are hide glue fit, which means they use that hot hide glue that has to be applied and kept warm. And you can watch all the cool videos from Gibson Custom about how they do that. Whereas on the American USA 50 standard, that's going to be a tight bond. It's not going to be the hide glue that they used traditionally for those guitars. Of course, we have a two-piece maple top here that's been book matched. This one is lightly figured. I don't understand the Gibson AA, AAA, and AAAA rating, or for those of you who will definitely correct me, 2A, 3A, or 4A top ratings, because I find some that are labeled 4A that look 2A and vice versa. It's not as easy to understand as the PRS 10 top designation, which does occasionally have those that get through that I think should have been 10 tops and those that shouldn't have. But ultimately, this one has light figuring, looks very vintage-esque. And the top is fit to the body with hide glue, again, on the custom reissue guitars, and not on the 50 standards. That would be tight bond again. With regards to other changes, you will find that the 50s reissues for the custom shop, and 60s reissues too, are actually going to have the bridge drilled directly into the body, the bridge posts. Whereas in the Gibson USA, you're going to have the studs that are pushed into the body, and then the bridge mounted to the studs. And some people think that that contributes to tone, and I don't know. I don't think I've noticed a difference. I've again had some that were more or less alive. I do know that Faber sells bridge replacements for USA models that replace the entire stud by just putting it into the body and mounting it like a traditional ABR. And some people like that, and some people probably don't. Regardless, all of your Les Pauls are going to have a stop tailpiece and a Tune-o-matic bridge, unless they're fitted with a Bigsby. This and other custom shop models are going to have what's called a lightweight aluminum tailpiece, whereas on the USA models it's just called aluminum tailpiece. And then the ABR1 bridge, again, is going to be mounted differently on the USAs and the custom shops. But you're also going to notice that the way that they're constructed is a little different, because on the USA models you have like a hex wrench adjustment here on your post that you can screw the bridge up or down. I would slack string tension if I did that. Whereas on these you have to relax the string tension and use the thumb wheel, unless yours is smooth enough to just move without that, or if you are the Incredible Hulk and can do it anyways. Along with USA models, you're going to find an Indian rosewood fingerboard on the Gibson custom guitars and the Gibson USA 50 standard reissue, and a 12-inch radius. And that's sort of going to be where some of the similarities stop with regards to the neck, and I'll talk more about that in a second. So with your Gibson custom guitars, Murphy Lab included, you have vintage reproduction plastic pieces. So you have various cellulose butyrates, acetates, and royalites used for the binding, the switch covers, the pickup rings, the pick guard itself. For your knobs, yes, that's true. They even changed the formulation for your knobs so you can have vintage reproduced knobs so they'll age appropriately. And then on your custom shops, you also have the custom buckers. So these are Alnico 3 containing pickups, and they are unpotted. So unpotted means not wax dipped, which can make them sound more alive, but can also make them prone to feedback. Now, I don't notice any more feedback on this guitar than I do on any other guitar with potted pickups, but I do use a noise gate when I play, and so that could impact greatly the feedback that you get when you're playing under intense high gain. Like any other Les Paul 3-position switch, up is your neck pickup, which is controlled by a volume and a tone, and then down is your bridge pickup, which is a volume and a tone, and then in the middle you have both of them, and you can tweak your tone really a lot by using your tone controls and your volume controls to blend the pickups in a variety of ways. In the Gibson USA standard models, the 50 standards, you have burst buckers. And burst buckers are, I think, love them or hate them. A lot of people rave about the burst buckers. I personally have not had good experiences with burst buckers for my sound, but that's what comes in your 50 standards. I believe it's a burst bucker 1 in the neck and a burst bucker 2 in the bridge. And I don't think those are Alnico 3 magnet pickups. I will look that up and put it on the screen. Moving on to your neck, with the Gibson custom models, the neck is a little bit different in terms of the profile, which I talked about, but also in terms of the inlays. So these are, I believe, cellulose nitrate inlays, whereas you'd have more acrylic on your Gibson USAs. You also find that the fret size is bigger on these reissues. So when you look at the spec sheets for Gibson, the 50 standard Les Paul USA model comes with medium jumbo. And I've talked on the channel a bunch of times about how those medium jumbo are really short, in my opinion, with like a .036 or so inch crown height and then a fairly wide profile for width. These are taller. These are, probably .044 or something I wouldn't be surprised if they were using the Jescar equivalent for a 47-110 or so, 47-105 or something like that for these, because they are taller, which I prefer. I think that that's a much more comfortable playing experience than those that are really short frets. And then another big difference with the neck is the nut. So the nut on vintage reissue Les Pauls is oh god, what's the word for it? So the nut on vintage reissue Les Pauls is nylon in the custom shop. But if you go with a Gibson USA, you're going to have a Graphtec nut. And there's going to be a huge debate as to whether or not the lubricity of nylon or the lubricity of Graphtec is better. I kind of lie in the, if it's going to be a reissue Les Paul, I would prefer it to be bone, even though I know that's not historically accurate. Bone is my preferred nut material for a Les Paul. So if I ever get to the point of replacing the nut on this guitar, I'll probably put a bone nut on it. And as an aside, working with nylon is an absolute nightmare. You have to cut it, you have to saw it basically. Like regular nut files take forever to slot them. You have to be careful when you're sanding it, if you're trying to profile the nut, that you don't melt it, because the friction will cause it to melt before it will actually just sand nicely like bone or a Graphtec. It also tends to like not flake off, but it's almost like an eraser. When you use an eraser, you get those little pieces of eraser that come off it, and that's very similar for nylon. I've had to replace a nylon nut before, and it was not pleasant. I did not enjoy it, and I swore at that point I would always go bone afterwards. But I digress. Moving on to the headstock, which is, I guess, part of the neck. In the vintage reissue Les Pauls, the headstock veneer is holly, which is vintage accurate. Whereas on the USA standards, it's not wood, it's a composite. And you can look up the video where Jim DeCola is talking about the necks and how they make the necks. And he actually pulls out some of those cool headstock veneers that are made from whatever the composite is. And it's a video with Andertons, and the captain jokingly says, I'd like to have one of those. Me too, Jim DeCola, if you are listening. I would like you to sell those so that I can put one on my wall. I think that'd be cool. But again, I digress. Has your classic one-way truss rod in it. The truss rod used in the reissue Les Pauls are vintage no-tube truss rods. I personally don't know what that means, because I have never installed a truss rod yet. And the 50s ones are not authentic no-tube, so whatever that means, they are slightly different. They are still one-way truss rods. Finally, we get to our tuners. Our tuners here are going to be vintage Clouson tuners with the single ring tulip buttons on our reissue Les Pauls, but on our 50s standard Les Pauls, they are Gibson Deluxe tuners. And so they look similar, they work similar, but they are not quite similar. I'm not really holding a preference for one or the other. Generally, if I have a 50s standard, as long as the buttons look similar to this in terms of color, I'm happy. I don't care if they are different gear ratios or whatnot. So what makes this different from other custom shops? Because I've gone through this and I've told you all the similarities to custom shops, and you're probably thinking, so why would I choose a Voss, or why would I choose a NOS or a Murphy Lab Age? What's the difference? And the difference, as far as I can tell, is the finish. Okay, so even the hardware, they have the Murphy aging process for the hardware, but if you go out and buy a Voss Les Paul from the Gibson Custom Shop, you'll find a very similar, like, aged pattern on it. So I bought a number of those Custom Shop Les Pauls, and I don't really see a difference between the Murphy Lab and the non-Murphy Lab aging. But what I do see a difference in is the finish. And the finish is supposed to be, and I don't know because I don't work for the Murphy Lab, is supposed to be proprietary to the Murphy Lab guitars and is more authentic to vintage instruments from the 50s. So there has long been information online about the current nitrocellulose used on 50 standard guitars and how it is mixed with plasticizer, which makes it easier and more consistent to spray and also more resistant to damage. And I do notice that on my Les Paul standard guitars, slight marks and things don't appear after light touching. So, I have my keys in my pocket a lot, and I'll play and I'll move my guitar around. And what I can notice on the Murphy Lab already is that I've got some finish moving just from them touching my keys in my pocket. And on my other custom shop guitar, which has nitro from the custom shop, but not Murphy Lab, that doesn't happen. It also doesn't happen on my USA. So I am led to believe that this is a thinner and more brittle and also less durable finish. And I think that's the point. You want a Murphy Lab so you can break it in, so it can have the aging pattern that is most authentic to your playing. And sort of that's why I wanted a Murphy Lab, is that I play all the time, but most of my guitars don't show any wear because they have polyester finishes or whatnot. And, some people like that. They want their guitars to look brand new from the day they get them to the day that they die. That's not me. I want the wear to show up. I want the evidence of my mileage to be visible. And so with the Murphy Lab, I'm already seeing some aging to my guitar, even though I've only had it for about a month and a half, along the back here, along the side here. And I haven't gigged it. I haven't dinged it anywhere. It's just been playing here in the room. And you've seen I've done a couple videos on it, as well as, and one of them I've embedded in this as the demo for the guitar. And it's just feels different. It feels unique. It will be authentic to my playing, and it will grow older with me, which I like. And then, when I die, my daughter can have this, and it will have all my wear on it. And maybe when they get cloning ready to go, they'll be able to clone me from it or something like that. I'm joking, of course. But anyways, I think I've covered everything with the Les Pauls. I got a little bit windy there in terms of all the specs and everything, but I wanted to sort of elucidate to you, the viewers, about why you might choose a Murphy Lab over a regular Voss Custom, or why over a 50s Les Paul Standard. And I do want to, before we go to the demo, leave by saying, or not leave, but break for the demo by saying that just because I like a Murphy Lab doesn't mean that everybody will like a Murphy Lab. And for some of you, a 50 standard is going to be good enough. And for some of you, nothing less than a Gibson Custom will be good enough. And then there will be even some of you that like Epiphones and think Epiphones are the best value for the money. And why would you spend, $7,000 on a Murphy Lab ultralight aged when you could get an inspired by Gibson 59 aged for like $12.99 or whatever they're selling them for. And all I'm going to say is, if you have a guitar that you like, that's what matters. It doesn't matter what the price is. It doesn't matter whether you have X pickups or Y pickups, as long as you like it. So I saw a thing, I think Guitar World posted it. Maybe it wasn't Guitar World. That was a quote that was, "You don't get a medal for owning a Murphy Lab." And while that is technically untrue, because I do have this nice medallion on the back of my Murphy Lab, it's who's going to come by and go, "Oh man, yes, here, you deserve this award because you have a Murphy Lab." It's not going to happen. It's all about what you like. It's all about what makes you want to create music. And I've already done two things that I'm really proud of with this guitar. One being the Jeff Beck cover, which I'll put the link into, and the other being the demo for this. And I anticipate you'll see this guitar more on the channel as time goes on. So let's check out the demo. right, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the demo. I hope you enjoyed seeing the guitar, what it has to offer. If you have any questions about Murphy Labs, custom shops, Gibsons, or Epiphones, I am happy to take those in the comments. In the meantime, check out my other videos, especially the Jeff Beck cover. Very proud of that. Use this guitar on it. Gives you some idea of some different tones you can get with it. Like, subscribe, have a phenomenal weekend.